Friends, if everyone could please take a seat. Everyone will kindly take their seats. We're going to get started. Please take a seat. Friends, kindly take a seat. Solomon, can you actually hear me? Awesome. Okay. All right. So I will kindly take the other me out. He's heading back. It came in very handy. While I was gone, I was moved around. Shana Tova, welcome. So good to see so many of you. I want to say a special welcome to our brothers and sisters at our sister church, First AME of Oakland, who are here tonight as guests. And I'll explain more about that a little later. Their choir is going to be doing the closing song or songs tonight. They were not guests, this was their home for Sunday worship for several months. We'll talk about that later too, but it's great to have them there, Pastor Rodney Smith, and if he wants to say hello, just wave to us. There's their Pastor Rodney Smith. And also, I would like to introduce, maybe he's not here quite yet, but it's the Deputy Consul General for the State of Israel, Matan Zamir. Is he here yet or not yet? Okay, well, he's here. All right, well, he'll be here too, so anyway. And welcome to college kids who are home, alumni who it seemed like their bar mitzvah was last year, but it might have been like 20 years ago, as it turns out. Great to have you all here too. So we're going to start on page 2. On this night, O God, we've come into your house to pray in your sanctuary. But if the heavens are merely your throne, if the earth is but your footstool, if the heaven of heavens cannot contain you, how much less this house, built by mere human hands? Yet although your dwelling place is every place, and although you can be sought and found in any place, it is to this place that we come most confidently to seek renewal in your purifying presence. We'll do one more English reading on page 3, a responsive reading, page 3. To everything there is a season, and there is an appointed time for every purpose under heaven.
Now is the time to turn.
The seasons change as is the balance of day and night.
The birds are beginning to turn, and are heading toward the south.
The animals are beginning to turn, storing their food for the winter.
The earth for birds and animals turning from but for us turning not come so easily.
Takes an act of will for us to make a turn.
This is never easy.
It means losing face. It means starting all over again. And this is always painful.
It means saying I'm sorry. It means admitting that we have the ability to change. This is always embarrassing.
These things are terribly hard to do, but unless we turn, we will be trapped forever in yesterday's ways.
Dear God, help us to turn.
From callousness to sensitivity, from hostility to love.
From readiness to service, from envy to contentment.
From carelessness to discipline, from fear to faith.
Turn us around, God, and bring us back toward you. Divide our lives
and turn us toward each other, God, for in isolation there is no life. It is not only Rosh Hashanah, the New Year, is also Shabbat. So Shabbat Shalom, and we begin tonight's service with Psalm 92, a song for Shabbat. And we're delighted once again to have with us our Chazanit Yael Krieger joining us, and she will begin on page 4.
Mizmor shir leyom haShabbat, tov lehodot l'Adonai, u'lezamer l'shimcha Elyon, u'lezamer l'shimcha Elyon. Marom Adonai, Eirotecha Lenu Me'od, Levecha Nava Kodesh, Adonai Leorech Yamin.
So in a moment we'll rise for the Baruch, but a reminder announcement, and I know a lot of us haven't been here in a while, so we want to make sure, although it is counterintuitive since there's cameras staring us all over as we're being live streamed, and hello, Shabbat Shalom, L'Shana Tova to anybody who's watching from the live stream, but individual phones, please make sure those are turned off and put away, as we don't really allow them at all on our holidays or Shabbat. So if you do need to make an emergency contact with someone, please step outside the building to do so. All right, please rise now for the Baruch, the formal call to prayer on page 5.
Ahavat Olam Beit Yisrael
continue on our own, page 7. Now on page 8.
ומלכותו ברצון קיבלו עליהם משה מרים ובני ישראל לחנו שירה בשמחה רבה ואמרו כולם מי כמוך באלים אדוני מי כמוך
Page 9. Rise from the Shamri, page 9, the Covenant of Shabbat.
Hey!
Private Amidah, beginning on page 11, it goes all the way through page 17. Go ahead and read the words of the book. It's also just a good time for your own private meditations and prayers. Rise now for the Kiddush. It's on page 24.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'am v'romemanu mikol hashon v'kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'titen lanu Adonai Eloheinu b'yahava et yom hashabat hazeh v'et yom hazikaron hazeh yom zichron teruah b'yahava mikra kodesh zecher l'tziat Mitzrayim kivanu b'charta v'yotanu kidasha mikol ha'amim udvarchan et v'kayam la'ad baruch atah Adonai melech hakol ha'aretz mekadesh ha'shabbat melech hakol ha'aretz
בזמן הזה.
Remain standing for the Alleluia, page 25. Jack Covell, Gertrude Primerman, Nathan Kurtz, Regina Lazar, Jacob Leeson, Ellie Levis, Ann Miller, Yuta Oak, Albert Reingold, Bertha Rothman, Ilse Saunders, Wilhelmine Saunders, Sheldon Schaefer, Joseph Schwartz, Samuel Shapiro, Fanny Silverman, Lillian Silverman, Kenneth Dean Simon, Minnie Teverow, Sidney Tuckman, Pearl Weiner, Samuel Weiss, Pauline Wolfe, and Bella Wolfe. We are in the Shloshim for all the following people because Shiva is canceled with Rosh Hashanah, even if it was even in the last few days. But we're thinking especially tonight of Harvey Blatter, husband of Fran and father of Helene Blatter, Stephen Schaefer Glick, father of Beth Glick, Nissan Sadian, husband of Carol Sadian and owner of the Lakeshore Cafe, Brian Leonard Perdue, brother of Sabrina Perdue Cohen and Evan Perdue, and Monique Joseph, the mother of Nadine Joseph. She lived to be 99 years old and survived with quite a tale, the Holocaust. The memories of all of them with us. We ask all those who are in mourning or observing Yortzeit, as well as anyone who wishes to rise from the mourner's cottage on page 26. Yit Gadol, V'Yit Kadash, Shamei Rabah.
Amen.
V'Yalmad Yivrach Yeruteh, V'Yamliv Malchuteh, V'Chayechon, V'Yomechon, V'Yedechon Beit Yisrael, V'Galah, V'Zman Karev, V'Imru.
Amen.
Yeshmei Rabah, Barach,
Le'lam,
Le'amaya, Yitbarach, V'Yishtabach, Yitba'ar, V'Yitromam, V'Yitnaseh, V'Yitadar, V'Yitaleh, V'Yitalal, Shemei V'Yitrushah, Karev, La'ela, La'ela, Mikol Berchata, V'Shirata, Tushbechata, V'Nechemata, Damiran V'Yamam, V'Yitru.
Amen.
Yehi Shlama Rabbamin Shemaya, V'Chaim, Aleinu V'Al Kol Yisrael V'Yimru.
Amen.
V'Osei Shalom B'Mrama, V'Ya'aseh Shalom, Aleinu V'Al Kol Yisrael V'Yimru.
Amen.
May the source of peace send peace to all who are mourning, comfort to all who are bereaved, and let us say, Amen. Now, it's going to work a little differently than at our usual service. I sometimes do this for Erev Rosh Hashanah. You notice I have not given a sermon yet. There is one, I promise, for better and worse. And what we're going to do is we're going to conclude the service part with Psalm 27 and then Yigdal. Then I'm going to give the sermon, and then the choir, not our choir, we don't actually have one, unless, we have an EBA for the kids, but the choir from First AMA Church will close out after that. So we're going to turn now to page 27, Psalm 27. couple other announcements before Yigdal. Tomorrow, some of you will be disappointed if you don't know it already. There is no shofar blowing on the first day of Rosh Hashanah, which coincides with Shabbat, which means hopefully I'll see extra people on the second day, which is on Sunday. Both services start at 9:30 a.m., not 9. Children's services start at 9 a.m. Youth services with Susan Simon start at 9:30 a.m. Tashli is also not done on Rosh Hashanah when it coincides with Shabbat, so we will, but Temple Sinai does do it on the first day, so we will be doing it with Beth Jacob at our spot at Diamond Park on the second day. That's all on your tickets. If you have any questions, you can ask me, you can ask Raina, and we'll be happy to answer them. Yigdal, page 28.
Lo naro
And we may close our books at this time. All right, Solomon, still good? All right, good. I'd like to show off my new talit. I got it in Israel. If you know me, I got it during my sabbatical, of course. But if you know me, you know I can't actually visit Israel without coming home with at least 2 talitot and a half a dozen or more kippot. I'm like a talit kippotaholic. I mean, it's, you've seen, I just looked at the confirmation pictures, different one every year. But what I love about this talit is not just the color scheme and the musical notes. There are a couple stories behind it. First of all, the tzitzit have the thread of blue woven in them. The thread of blue talked about in the biblical book of Numbers. And they were tied on by my friend Rebbe Eliezer Cohen underneath the western wall. So the holiest of objects completed in the holiest of places. The other story is what it took to get the talit. So it was made by a talit maker who calls himself the Talisman. And he's got a giant room in his home studio at a tiny little moshav called Shuva, right on the border of the Gaza Strip. And you know, when you hear in the news about rockets landing, being sent by Hamas into Israel, this is one of the places where they land. So I had to hope that when I ordered it, that 6 weeks later, it would be a quiet time. Now, it turned out it was a quiet time, although in between, it was not at all. But the day came, we went and picked it up, and what turned out to be the most dangerous part of the journey was actually renting a car and trying to get out of the city of Jerusalem. The Jerusalem drivers, like the rest of Jerusalem, are very special. They sit on their horns, I think. They honk and they honk and they honk incessantly, even at red lights when you can't move. Now, I tell you this story because the sermon tonight is going to begin and end with a story about the honking of horns. As most of you know, on Erev Rosh Hashanah, I always introduce the theme that's going to be connecting all my high holiday sermons together. And the theme this year, unsurprisingly perhaps, is Israel. It's not a surprise, given that I spent 4 out of my 5-month sabbatical living in Jerusalem. Although I may not mean Israel quite the way that you think I do, as I'll explain in a moment. But first I want to say thank you for the sabbatical. I want to thank all of you. I want to thank the cardboard cutout. I want to thank the leadership. I want to thank those who took my place in my absence, who really rose up. I couldn't have done it without you, and it was everything I hoped it would be and more. Now, I've been looking forward to it for a long time, for it certainly seemed like for 22 years nonstop I've talked and worked. It's been a long time, although I did have one in 2011, to be fair as well. But this is actually my 23rd Rosh Hashanah here at Temple Beth Abraham. I had brown hair when I started. I had a beard so I could look older, which I don't have to do anymore. That is absolutely true. Now, I had thought before I left that I was still an Energizer Bunny kind of rabbi. I'm still running around doing a lot of things. But it turns out that being a solo rabbi for a nearly 500 household congregation, combined with the extra challenge of COVID and all that brought, combined with our fabulous executive director, Raina Arnold's extended health leave, combined with probably 3 of the most tragic funerals I've ever dealt with in the month before I left, I needed it even more than I imagined. So thank you again. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And what did I do on sabbatical? Right, you probably imagine rabbis on sabbatical, like professors, take on a particular project, maybe some writing. But I was given the very explicit instructions to do whatever I wanted. So, besides eating copious amounts of kosher meat and walking it off with an average of 21,000 steps per day, which is why, if I still look thin, that is why. But what that meant was what we call Torah Lishma, which means Torah learning for its own sake. And this is how it worked itself out. I spent 2 weeks at a rabbinic program put on by the Shalom Hartman Institute, rabbis from different denominations, and their approach to Torah is academic and it's current events. But then I also spent 2 months at a very traditional Orthodox yeshiva in the old city of Jerusalem called Oraita, where one of the main teachers is Rabbi Judah Dardick, the former rabbi of Beth Jacob, the Orthodox synagogue here in Oakland. And it's a gap year yeshiva, so it's meant for people between high school and college. So my class was me and a bunch of 19-year-olds. I fit right in. Sure. But it was also just fantastic. And in between, I helped take over 40 members and staff members of Temple Beth Abraham on a once-in-a-lifetime trip around Israel. And really, it was just awe-inspiring. So, back to the theme. What you're not going to hear are 4 sermons on the geopolitics of the Middle East. Right? Believe it or not, I don't think that I can actually solve all of Israel's problems from here in North America. Right? That's not what I mean by Israel. And in fact, only one of the sermons will even really be about the land of Israel. And that's going to be about my experiences during the sabbatical, and it's going to be on the night of Yom Kippur, on Kol Nidre. On Yom Kippur morning, I'm going to be talking about ancient Israel and the ceremony described in the Torah of the scapegoat. Tomorrow, it's going to be Am Yisrael, the Jewish people, the people Israel. And tonight, it's about Israel, the word, and Israel, the name, Yisrael, which literally means to struggle or wrestle with God. And it was the name given to Jacob after his wrestling match with this strange, divine-like creature. I'm going to talk about exactly what that was in just a minute and what lessons we can take from it. But as Jews especially, we know what it's like to wrestle with God. Most of the people in this room question everything about God. We live in a world of imperfect faith, and we hope maybe to get there one day. So what I want to do is look very carefully at the wrestling match. What happened? Why does he receive the name? What lessons and inspiration can we draw from it? So first I need to set the scene. It happens in Genesis 32, but what's about to happen is Yaakov, Jacob, is ready for a meeting with his brother Esau. And last time he heard, Esau wanted to kill him. So he doesn't know, as he gets ready for this meeting, whether it's going to be reconciliation or battle. So that's the scene. And then Genesis 32 says the following. And Jacob was left alone. And an ish, the Hebrew word there uses ish, man, wrestled with him all night long until the break of dawn. And when this creature, this ish, this man, saw that he could not prevail against him, he grabbed a hold of his hip socket and he dislocated it. And then he said, "Let me go, for the dawn is breaking." And Jacob said, "I will not let you go until you bless me." And he said, "Well, what is your name?" And he replied, "Jacob." "Well, you shall no longer be called Jacob, but Israel, Yisrael. For you have struggled with God and with men, and you have prevailed." So that's the passage. And the first question, of course, is, what was this thing? Right? The text explicitly says it's a man. But we know that in the Torah, a man isn't necessarily a man. Maimonides, the great Jewish philosopher, believes it's really a dream. It's Jacob wrestling with himself, because as evidence of that, the very first line says, Jacob was left alone. So who's he wrestling with if there's nobody there? On the other hand, some of the other famous commentators believe it very much as an angel, and a very specific angel. Rosh, the great French commentator, he says it's not just an angel, it's Esau's guardian angel. And that in order for Yaakov, Jacob, now Israel, to face Esau in real life, he's got to get past the guardian angel. The Spanish commentator Ramban, Nachmanides, different guy than Rambam, Maimonides, he says it's an angel sent by God for the specific purpose of losing. The whole idea is to give Jacob, now Israel, confidence so he can face his brother. And Jacob himself, he seems to think he's wrestling with God, because the end of that passage is he names the place of the wrestling match, and he calls it Peniel, which literally means the face of God. And all this was said to have taken place by the Zohar, the Jewish mystical text, on the night of Yom Kippur, this mystical struggle. Now, our wrestling matches may not be quite so mystical, but as human beings, we know what it's like to struggle. We know what it's like to wrestle. We wrestle with faith. We wrestle with ourselves. We wrestle with confidence. We wrestle with relationships, health, family, addiction. You name it, because we're human. And that is our lot in life. We struggle. So what are the lessons that we can take from this wrestling match? Because much more important than what this creature is or was, is what do we learn from it, of course. So I can think of at least 4 lessons that I'm going to share with you briefly. The first 2 of which come from the great Rabbi Jonathan Sacks, former chief rabbi of England. Lesson number 1, you're never really prepared. Okay, I know we think we are, but we're not. Jacob makes all kinds of preparations. He sends gifts ahead of time. He lines his people up in a particular order to cause the least amount of damage in case there is battle, and he prays. But what he never imagines is that his biggest challenge isn't going to be his brother. It's going to be some weird mythical creature in the middle of the night. Right? We make all these plans. We stress. We worry about all kinds of things. But it's the things that hit us on an idle Tuesday or Wednesday in the middle of the week that we never see coming that are often our greatest challenge. As the Yiddish expression goes, Menschen Nacht und Guten Lacht, which means humans plan and God just laughs. Lesson number 2, the greatest battles are internal ones. They're within. Sachs clearly agrees with Maimonides. He thinks that Jacob is wrestling with himself. He has to defeat his inner demons before he can face the external enemy who turns out not to be an enemy. Kind of reminds me of the fake Kurt Vonnegut graduation speech. There's a line in there that says, "The race is long, and it is with yourself." A couple more lessons that I want to add on to it. We may be victorious in our battles. We may prevail, as Jacob did, but we don't emerge unscathed. Jacob limps for the rest of his life, even though he's now Israel, because of that hip sign. And we have scars from our battles. They fade, but they don't disappear. And all we can really do is acknowledge them and learn from them. And the fourth and final lesson, at least for the moment, is that when it comes to wrestling matches and struggles, it can be really helpful to have faith that Hashem, that God, is right there with us in the trenches, helping us, suffering with us as we do battle, internally or externally. So those are the 4 lessons, and I believe we should be inspired by them. We should be inspired by Israel, the person, because he has emerged from the struggle, and he has prevailed. And just as we should be inspired by Israel, the person, we should be inspired by Israel, the people, the Jewish people. For 3,000 years or 4,000 years, depending on whether you count from Moses or Abraham, nations have come to destroy us, but we are still here. And we're not just surviving, we're thriving. We're rebuilding. 17 million Jews in the world, I read today. Over 17 million, something like 47% are in the land of Israel, the rest throughout the diaspora. We are thriving. We have emerged from the struggle, and we are prevailing. You should be inspired by the people of Israel. You should be inspired by the person Israel. You should be inspired by the people Israel. And you should be inspired, we should be inspired by the land of Israel, the nation of Israel, the state of Israel. Talk about battle scars. Right from its inception, right? Surrounded on all sides by enemies who wanted nothing more than to wipe them off the map. And yet, Israel, despite all the mishigas, despite increasing enemies internally, meaning disarray, dysfunction, disunity, yes, it seems to be a mess over there. But what our nation has accomplished in 75 years of existence is almost unprecedented in human history. And although it seems dark, perhaps at the moment, I promise Israel will emerge from the struggle and ultimately prevail. A couple people might have walked out, a couple people are clapping. You should be inspired by the nation of Israel, though. You should be inspired by the people of Israel. You should be inspired by the person of Israel. And if none of those work for you, you should be inspired by our guests tonight, the members of the First AME Church. As most of you know, their church burnt down on a cold night in February this past year. And while their building may have been destroyed temporarily, their community, their spirit, could never be destroyed. And you, the members of Temple Beth Abraham, were the first, although actually It might have been my son Micah whose idea it was. I'm not entirely sure. But you were the first to say, "You're a mile from us. Come worship in our space on Sunday mornings." Of course you did. Of course you did, because you knew it was the right thing to do. And you knew that they would do the same thing for us if the circumstances were reversed. And the gratitude that they showed, the letters, the cards, beautiful cards. And they were, of course, to our membership to Temple Beth Abraham, but they were also to God, to Hashem. I wish you could have seen their Facebook page on the day it was announced that they'd be praying here, that they had a temporary home, right? There were expressions of thanksgiving to us, but most of them read, "Look at God, hallelujah, praise be God, give God all the blessings. Look at God opening doors for us. Be faithful. Have faith. Won't he do it? Yes." I'm quoting right from that Facebook page. You should be inspired by the members, by the community of the First AME Church in Oakland. You should be inspired by the state of Israel. You should be inspired by the people of Israel. You should be inspired by the person Israel. Because all of them, all of us, are continuing to emerge from our struggles, and we have, and we can, and we will prevail. Two more stories. It's really, actually, sort of 2.5. So while I was studying at the Old City Yeshiva, Oraita, we were studying a tractate of the Talmud called Makot. Makot means lashes, and it's about punishments, this tractate. It's a brutal tractate. But the closing story is worth everything. In the context of the story is that Jerusalem has been destroyed by the Romans. The Temple Mount lies in ruins, and the people have gone into exile. And 4 of the most prominent rabbis of the time, Rabban Gamliel, Rabbi Yehoshua, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, and Rabbi Akiva, they walk by the site of the Temple Mount, and they see a fox trampling on what just a few days before was the Holy of Holies. And they begin to cry. Except for Rabbi Akiva. He seems to be smiling. And so the other rabbis say to him, "Akiva, how can you be smiling? Our most important site of worship is being trampled on by wild animals." And Akiva said, "Yes, but is there not a prophecy in the biblical book of Micah which says that Mount Zion shall be laid waste, Jerusalem reduced to a heap of rubble, and the Temple Mount overcome with wild thickets, which ostensibly would also bring wild animals? But is there not also a prophecy in Zechariah which says that Zion shall be restored in glory, that the temple will be rebuilt, and that the old men and the old women will sit in the broad places of Jerusalem? And if the prophecy of Micah is coming true before our eyes, the prophecy of Zechariah cannot be far behind. Redemption could be right around the corner. And so the addendum to that story is that this past year, on the holiday of Tisha B'Av, the holiday where we commemorate the destruction of both temples, on camera, they captured, in the middle of the night, walking along Robinson's Arch, the egalitarian plaza of the Western Wall, a wild animal. Now, it was probably a jackal, but some say it was a fox. Perhaps the redemption is closer than you think. And one final story. Remember I told you we were going to begin and end with the honking of horns. One day, at the Oraita Yeshiva, getting ready for my Talmud class on Makot, Rabbi Dardick texts the group. Actually, it's called WhatsApp, is what we use in Israel. But And they say, what's up? Instead of what's that? I don't understand what that's saying. So anyway, he texted ahead, and he said he was going to be late. Well, we waited, and 2 hours late, he shows up. And he is frantic, and he's a mess, and he's disturbed, and agitated, and perturbed, and I mean, he really can't control himself, and he starts talking a mile a minute about why he was so late. The traffic was just terrible. I mean, there was a jackknife truck along the only route to Jerusalem, and the cars were lined up, and there was no way to get around it. And yet, even though everyone knew there was no way to get around it, the Israeli drivers, they honked and they honked and they honked. They kept honking their horns incessantly, and it was deafening. Then he paused, took a deep breath, and with equal parts sarcasm and profundity, he said, "You see, what I love about Israelis is they're eternally optimistic. You see, they're not honking their horns just because they're impatient or angry. They're honking their horns because they believe that by them honking their horns, it's going to make a difference. That somehow, right amidst all logic, against all logic, they believe that if they honk their horn loudly enough and long enough, the redemption will come. Or at least the movement of the car." So friends, be eternally optimistic. In 5784, be inspired by the person of Israel. Be inspired by the people of Israel. Be inspired by the land of Israel. Be inspired by the first AME church. And may it be a year, 5784, where all of us continue to emerge from our struggles and indeed prevail. Shana Tova, Shabbat Shalom. Members of the first AME choir to inspire us as well. triumph for streaming for the First AME Church Choir under the direction of Pastor Justin Williams. Pastor Rodney Smith. And for all of you members of Abraham for allowing us to do something just a little different this year. Let's not around at the top. Have a good New Year.